ZywOo is easily the most overrated GOAT contender in the history of Counter-Strike. The history of the game. Because you have to realise, guys, you don't even get in the GOAT conversation unless you're mega legit normally. Like, my problem is this. If you look at his body of work, he can be in the conversation. But this is what I hate about this. I made this point before, but I'll be very brief with it. The same fans who themselves put him in this convo. I never put him in this convo, guys. Like, I tweeted this the other day. I think it's pathetic that ESL even called Monty a legend because he won fucking Cologne 1.5 years into his career. It's like, bro, what do these words mean anymore? So the same thing. I didn't put ZywOo in the GOAT category. I've kept him very reasonable. I've been tracking him the whole way. If you remember on a past episode, I even said I don't even think he's top 5. I'd have people like maybe even Kenny S still in the mix there, etc. But they put him in the convo and then they complain that we're making him like be too scrutinised. Like, the problem I have with this is if I don't consider the GOAT convo, it's brilliant with ZywOo, still great, still tracking okay. It's got a couple of years to get it together. But if you have a look at the idea, like GOAT contender means today I compare you against anyone who ever played the game. These are the deficiencies. Is that every time you put him in the big pressure match, it's not even that he plays bad, he just doesn't carry. And by the way, that is mad unreasonable, but guess what? That's why if you do carry like that, we call you fucking, whatever his name is, Sasha fucking Kostyaev, the GOAT, because you did do it. You did.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like putting ZywOo in a GOAT content today is just mental. You should never do it. The longevity needs to be like, the career needs to be longer, right? It needs to be 5-6 years. Take other GOATs from other sports, right? Just, football, right? We have Messi and Ronaldo, right? How many years they had to like score thousands of goals per season to actually be
probably 10 years at least, 10, 15, right? Yeah.
Look at Michael Jordan. Obviously, everybody is like saying LeBron, Kobe, whatever, right? It's Michael Jordan. And everybody knows it. How many years since like he joined in Chicago Bulls in 84, 85, before he was transformed from a superstar into a GOAT contender into a GOAT? Like, he had to win all these things. He had to carry all these things for so many games, for so many, rough playoffs and all these changes. Obviously, it's different in Counter-Strike because we have multiple tournaments and titles and everything, but it comes down to the major, right? And their run at the major was Monty into the Breach Apex Gamer League. And that's the playoffs, right? It's just it's different right now. And ZywOo, yes, can he be the GOAT in 5-6 years from now? Yes, absolutely. Is he the contender now? No, because he cannot be. He just cannot be, right? Just imagine, is Nikola Jokic a contender for the GOAT because he had 2 MVPs and now the title? Is he a fucking GOAT? Of course he fucking isn't. Is he the best player in the world right now in basketball? Yes, he is.
That's a great analogy. Yeah.
It makes no sense. Yeah. But and you said it like when in the past when it was Simple or Nico wasn't carrying enough, it was like, just fucking, slamming them all over the place. And now it's just, they lost because they didn't have the pre or like it's a new lineup and all this shit. Just give me a fucking break. Pick your fucking lane and stick to it. Just for fuck's sake. Go, Maui.
Yeah, well, for the GOAT conversation, why you wouldn't really include ZywOo for me just kind of boils down to a couple things which you guys have already touched on. One is longevity. He doesn't have that. Another angle that we've touched on before, at least Thorin and I, when we talked about especially like Elige versus Twist, is peak of the player. And the thing is that you would never really definitively say that the peak of ZywOo has been, other than this year, been better significantly than anybody else, because you look at the 2 number 1s that ZywOo had over Simple, and the first year, I would say that with the team accomplishments, with the MVPs that he got in 2019, I would have actually put him higher than Simple in that year. But 2020 to me was very fraudulent because the one LAN tournament that mattered is where Simple did very well. And then HLTV had to go off of online results. And because ZywOo did marginally better online than Simple, they started weighing that higher.
And his team was better.
Yeah, his team was better. So there were more team accomplishments there as well. But like that's where like those personal accomplishments for number 1 right there are so flimsy in like if you really boiled it down, whereas Simple has so many more years where he was definitively the best player. Like 2018, it was just like there wasn't really a chance for the second place player, which was Device, to be fair, at that time, but it was just like the margins between Simple and Device that year was so great that it was obvious. Like nobody had any doubts going into that list who was going to be number 1. And so for that year, for Simple's peak, And on top of that, Simple's been doing that for 5 years, basically. So, like, straight. So longevity, he just smashes him. And really, the body of work is where ZywOo could never really contest in an all-time discussion. If you want to say who the best player is for the last 3 years, you really do have an argument to be made right there. But if you want to say the greatest player of all time in CSGO, there is only one answer. And I've been someone that has said, like, you know, in the future, we could consider somebody like Monacy to be the GOAT. But it's like we needed a lot of time for that person to get blooded and for that person to rack up the personal achievements and team accomplishments on top of that for me to even really entertain that conversation in good faith.
And by the way, I'll just throw this in there. The reason why I am legit as fuck that I criticised the shit out of ZywOo, but this is where people are wrong. You know, people always paint this mad straw man that I like never ever imply I'm ever wrong and I've said was right. You know my favourite player of all time is Device, right, you fucking morons. Like, I had to take it on the chin for like 3 years when this guy kept getting banged out every fucking time. By the way, he even did it just like ZywOo does. He wouldn't just like be bad the whole series. He'd carry the fuck out of map 1, be like, all right, on map 2, and you could have won 2-0. And then map 3 is exactly like this, where you're like, right, it's your time. Just take over the game and we win the game. And then he would just have like the 14 kills or the 15 kills. And you just have like this lackluster performance. You just lose in like the worst way ever, by the way. You just get choked out. You don't even like get knocked out. You just gradually choke out. Like, and I never once, so you can go back, just was like, well, it's fine. It's okay for him to be bad. Like, that's whack, bro. In fact, I've always said this. This is why I actually think I've nailed how you follow sports, because it is about the narratives. I've always said this. I would actually rather my favourite player scores 50 points in an elimination game in the NBA and loses than has 10 points and wins the game. Because what did he win? In that scenario, if he had 10 points, he was carried, wasn't he? So in this scenario, like, I want ZywOo to fucking carry the tournament, just like I was waiting years for Device to do it. But when they don't do it, you can't then make an excuse, guys. You got to take it on the chin. It happened. It actually did happen.
Like, one last point to this is that, like, you have your rubric for how to grade a GOAT. Mine is slightly different than yours, as we have explained over other podcasts, but there's so many angles where you could basically say, like, other people are the GOAT of this game, but you just can't find an angle for ZywOo to actually be the GOAT, because if you actually choose any set of criteria, then there's going to be somebody else that just is better in those criteria than ZywOo. He's basically coming up second place in so many arguments, and longevity, obviously, he's like, 20th. Like, here's
the angle, Kassad. I'll give you it for free, right? This is what you haven't figured out, because if you use this angle, you can actually make it sound like a legit sporting angle why Nico's the GOAT. So you know what they do? You'll know the answer when I explain this concept. In MMA, Kassad, logically, the real best fighter is the heavyweight, right? Because he would knock everyone out, and then, like, how could some lightweight fighter? But they don't do that, do they, Kassad? What they do is they have that concept pound for pound, don't they? So that way, the little guy like Volkanovski, because he is super sick, maybe he is the best because, relative to how much weight he has, he might be able to beat everyone. So what you do is this, Kassad. Because all these fucking AWPers get to dominate, and they're all the GOATs, what you say is this: Nico is the dollar for dollar GOAT of CSGO. Because all he needs is an AK, baby. Those other motherfuckers need an AWP. Just give him an AK. It's 2,700. There you go. They got Nico's the 2,700 GOAT of CSGO. if you only have $2,700 to buy one gun, he's the GOAT. There you go. There's your freebie.
Oh, that's a good one.
Not a bad angle, eh? It's not bad. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.